Hello everyone. So this is configuring a this video is about configuring a port-based virtual host using Apache. So we've already installed Apache and we have it running on the default port 80, which is the standard installation, and we set up some content in var /HTML, which is also the standard document root. So if we look in here, we can see that I have this simple HTML, which has a title, VM internal to Dawson, and a header, and then we use this image Muppets, and this is what we see when we load the server. So we've set up content for the default. So now what we want to do is we want to set up a port-based virtual host. So a virtual host is a way of having multiple websites that have discrete content run by the same server. So the idea is you don't want to have a server for Joe's website that gets 2 or 3 hits and Sam's website that gets 2 or 3 hits. So you put them all together on one server. So these are the steps involved. First, we need to create a config file in sites available. So the default install gives us, see, this is where the content is. So now I'm going to the server root. So this is the standard default. It's virtual host listing on port 80. So here we have the email for the server admin. We have the document root for this particular virtual host. And then we have error logs. So we're going to do something similar for our port-based virtual host. And we're going to use this type of setup. So the first thing we do is create a config file in sites available that looks like this. And we insert a virtual host container into the file. So I'm just going to take a copy of this. I'm going to go into sites available. Copy. Oops, not enough zeros. We're going to call this one, so they'll be loaded in the named order. Port, and I'm just going to choose port 8765. The reason I'm choosing these ports is because my configuration allows the port range, the 8000 port range, but you can choose what you want as long as it's not one of the well-defined ports. It has to be a high port. So if it's in your Etsy services, don't use it. Call it that. Oops. Okay, so what we're going to be doing, notice I got permission denied. So what we're going to be doing requires root permission. So I'm going to switch user to root because everything I have to do needs root, requires root access. So I had already put my password in before, so it didn't ask me about it. So now let's go back to Etsy, Apache 2. Copy. 8765.conf. So now we're going to edit that. So here I don't need this, that's a comment, and I don't need most of the comments, so I'm just going to get rid of them. So we don't have a DNS, so we can't do anything about server name, so I'm just kind of ignoring that. And I'm going to want to log separately, so I'm going to keep log files, have separate log files. So what I need to do now is tell this virtual host, okay, we're not doing this by IP address. If I were doing it by IP address or host name, I would have to do something different, but IP address would be here under where the asterisk is. I'm saying any IP address, and the port is 8765. That was the port I wanted. And so I need a different document root because I want different content. So I'm just going to call it port 8765. So if it was for a specific thing, we might want to name it differently, but I just want it to be obvious what's going on here. And here we're going to have an error log for 8765 and an access log for 8765. So what I'm doing here is I'm setting it up for this particular port. So I have my virtual host container, that's step 2 here. It says insert a virtual host container with the needed directives, and I think my directives are okay. So I'm now going to save this. Let's move this up. And then the next step is run Apache control config test to verify the configuration. So let's try that. It says the syntax is okay. So that's good. It means I haven't made any typos. If I make a typo, I have to go back and check it. And now what I have to do, in order to activate this, I have to create a link in my sites enabled. So sites available is just everything. And if you notice in sites available, I have my original one for port 80. We know this is port 80. This is the one I created for port 8675. And this one is SSL. So let's just take a quick look at it. But we're not running SSL right now. Oops, sorry, I wanted to cat it. So we're not running SSL right now, so this one is not activated. And there's a whole bunch of other configuration in there. So what I need to do now is to create a link in sites available. So I'm going to go into sites available. Let's see what the links look like in there. So sites enabled. So let's go into that directory. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make a link. I have to go up to sites available, and 001 is the name, my file name. You can call it what you want. I just wanted to, I'm using the numbers so we know they're in order. And I'm going to use dot because I want the same file name. So let's see what it gives us. Oops, I guess I can't. Oh, I did an ls instead of an ln. And I want a symbolic link. So there we go. So now I have my two sites. So if I want to activate this, I have to tell Apache to reload its configuration files. So there's two ways to do this. I can use system control reload, or I can use Apache control graceful. So let's try system control. And since I'm root, it's fine. Let's try status first. We know it's running, but because it's serving that website. But it's okay, so it's up. So now what we want to do is reload it. So we don't need to stop and start it. What we need to do is it's sending a sig hup. The signal is sig hup that it sends to the daemon, and that tells the daemon, that's pretty standard for daemons and all network daemons. A hup says hang up and read your new configuration. Okay, so that should have reloaded Apache. Let's make sure it's running okay. Yes, it seems to be running. And notice it says running since. We didn't start it, we just told it to read what was going on. So now let's use netstat. Or let's first look at the processes. There we see we've got all the processes running. So this is the parent process, and it started two others. So that's the default config that we have right here. And let's also look at netstat. And see, make sure it's listening on our port. It's not listening on our port. That's because we missed something. So we missed something. What we missed was, you remember there is a ports.conf file. And in that, we have to tell Apache to listen to ports. Right now, I'm going to get rid of the comments. So it's only listening on port 80, and since we're not using SSL module, it's not listening on 443. So what we have to do is we have to edit this and make sure that it listens on the port that we want. So I'm just going to edit this. I'm just going to duplicate this line, YYP, and now I have to put the port in here, 765. Oops, no 0 on that. Again, you can use any port you want, but do not use any ports that are well known and assigned already, and they're all in your etc services file. Okay, so now I have to tell it to reread its config again since I changed something. So what I'm going to do is, where's my system control? There we go. System control, reload Apache 2. Now let's see what's going on. Now it's listening on the port that I want. So that's pretty good. Let's see what happens when we try to load it. So I'm going to copy this. Again, we're using HTTP, not HTTPS. So the way that I contacted on that port is to put the port in the URL. So here we go. So it's spinning, spinning, spinning. What could be wrong? Well, I think it's going to time out because it's taking way too long. This one loads really fast. Watch this. Very fast. Even if it weren't cache, it's very fast. So, well, one of the things that will stop something from getting onto your site is the firewall. Let's see. So here my firewall allows SSH. This is for HTTP port 80, and then these two weird ports, and then also for version 6. So we do not have this port. See, it timed out. So what this says when you say this site can't be reached, when you see this, it means that, and sorry, this site can't be reached and took too long to respond. It means that it's able to talk to 10.172.11.136, but it's not responding on the port that we've given it. So I'm just going to stop it now. Stop it from trying to connect. So what I need to do is I need to add it to the firewall. So what I need to do is allow that port. So you can look in the man page for UFW. So what I want to do is I want to allow. I think that's the keyword. So here we have UFW, allow, deny, reject, or limit. And then we put the port and the protocol. So these are optional. So we want to allow 8765 on over TCP. You never do HTTP over UDP, so it's over TCP. So now let's see what the status is. So the status is good. You can just ignore these. These are things I was playing with, so they're not really standard, but this is the one that we're worried about. So that looks good, and that looks good. So now let's try and load it again. What happened? It said the URL was not found on this server. So we need to give it content. Let's go back here. So let's see what's going on. Let's have a look at it says URL was not found on this server. Well, what URL? Well, since we didn't put anything here, since we didn't give it a path, it has to be the top of the document root. If we gave it a path, it would be document root plus the path. So let's see what the document root is for this virtual host. So what it's looking for is port 8765, but did we create it? Well, let's have a look. We only have HTML there, so that's what we have to do. We have to fix it by giving it content and actually creating the directory for content. So what we called it, port 8675. 8765, sorry, I keep doing that for some reason. So there we have a directory. Let's make sure the permissions are the same. So HTML, yes, the permissions are the same. The ownership is the same. So now in port 8765, I'm going to create some content. I'm just going to copy the HTML from the previous one. Sorry, the index HTML. And maybe edit it. So it's a virtual host. And I'm going to say this is on. So just to differentiate it, so I know what's in the other one, and this one's going to be, and it won't have any header. Coming soon. If I could spell it. I can't spell either. I can't know if coming is spelled with 2 M's or 1. Who knows? Spelling's not my strong suit. So this is the content that I put in the directory that matches the document root here. So whenever Apache receives a request, it looks for the document root and tries to load it from that path. So now that I've created content, let's see what happens. It worked. So now I know that the host is working well and I can populate that directory properly, but let's take a quick look. At the logs. So here we have all of the logs that are set up for Apache. And this is the one that I set up, access log and error log. So there's no errors for port 8675, but there's when we looked for the content, we'll just do less because it's fairly long. So, whoop, what happened there? That was odd. Oh, it's because it's so small. So whenever I access this website, let's make this. Whenever I access this website, it will be logged in there. So wait a minute. This is the time is 2:56. I'm going to log it once. Sorry, let's do this. Let's make it easier to see. So every time I access this particular website, this virtual host, it will be updated here. And if I do something in error, it will be updated in the error log that I set up for the host. So that's it. That's the final part of So this is the general configuration for creating a virtual host, but for for a port-based, don't forget the listen. So the listen directive. So we need to put the listen directive somewhere. So these are the instructions for creating a virtual host, a port-based virtual host in Apache. Thank you.